Welcome to the second of our two webinars. This is the webinar for the RealCare Baby Advanced section. Previously, we have run the RealCare Baby Basics webinar. That's on our website. You can check that out. Probably a good thing to do that before you go through the Advanced. And in the Basics one, we covered an introduction to the baby and its bits. We talked about charging the baby, how to add your baby to the control center software, how to run a demonstration in the classroom, how to program the baby with the control center software for a simulation, and also we talked about our RealCare self-service center. So the RealCare self-service center that is on our website at virtualparenting.com.au. Today we're going to look at two areas of the basic program, and that's the where to find the control center software help guide and the download area that we have, where you can download the curriculum and the control center software help guide and so on. So we'll just go into our screen and have a look at okay, we're looking at the area now. Now the download area, you can find the address for that and the password in the paper that came, or the information that came with your baby. So have a look through that. If you don't have it, send me an email and I'll send it to you. But it's basically an exclusive address with a password to get you into there for people who have purchased the babies from us. So just on this quick section here, you can see up the top here we've got the RealCare curriculum and how you download that. You can jump into that and you can see the download areas for that. Okay, just click on that link there and that'll open the program up for you. Down here, what I'm really interested in is the Control Center Help Guide. Click on that, and I'd like you to have that printed and available for you as you're going through this section. So if you don't have the Help Guide printed off, then take the time to do that, pause the video, print it off, and then have it there with you. The other way that you can find that is by going to your Control Center software. And when you control center software, I'll just share the whole screen, the desktop. Up the top here, you can see RealCare Control Center, and then there's File, Edit, and Help. If you click on Help, and then Help again, that'll take you to the manufacturer's website. And on the manufacturer's website, we have the opportunity here to download the Control Center Help. So you've got two options: go into the into the download area from Virtual Parenting, or go to the Help section from your Control Center software. Again, File, Edit, cross to Help, and then click on Help. So this is where we're going to cover today. We're going to cover, okay, just go to the top. So we just had a quick look at how you get the Control Center software and, the software help guide, and how important it is to have that for this next session. So we've just done a quick review of the baby basics and what we learnt there. And again, if you haven't seen that, go back to our website and click on that video and go through that. Lots of good information there on how to program your baby and how to program the IDs in your baby. A lot of good information about charging, which we'll cover again. But today we're going to be looking at how to get the best out of your program. So here we go. Getting the best out of your babies. Okay, we've just done the review. And okay, so what's the greatest risk? The greatest risk to your baby in any school environment, the greatest risk is year 9 and 10 boys. Basically, year 9 and 10 boys want to pick the baby up and throw it around and to just show how impressive they are with their physical skills on handling the baby in a humorous manner. In your school, you'll find that the students who are being charged with looking for the babies are the ones that are going to be quite conscientious, and the ones who are going to be very careful with looking after the baby. But the biggest risk is the people who are not doing the program. Even old crusty old maths teachers that think it's a great joke to hold the baby upside down and shake it. So it's really important from the outset that you start to put things in place that give the baby a elevated level of importance in the school. Now, the first thing you can do is start to call it the baby, the school's baby. If you call it doll, dolly, terms like that, calling it a doll, what you do is you start to talk about it, treat it like a toy, basically. So you need to start considering using the term baby at all times. This is the school's baby. When you start to go dolly, and you got the dollies this week, and we're going to use the dollies, and you've got the doll, have you? It really minimises the experience, and it cheapens the experience, and they start to think more about it as a toy, and then opens it up for more abuse than is really is acceptable. So call it a baby. By calling it a baby, you start to generate a culture. You start to generate a culture in the school that this is an important piece of equipment. And by generating a culture and by letting people know that this is an expensive piece of equipment, it's up there with the cost of a high-end laptop. Students wouldn't be picking the laptop up and throwing it around. They wouldn't be punching it or passing it from each other or grabbing it off each other. So when you start to treat it seriously and get the students to start to understand this is a baby, it's an expensive piece of equipment, what you'll find is you'll start to get a culture generating in the school. And how you further that is as soon as you get any incident of where a Year 9 boy has grabbed the baby and roughly handled it, or they've taken it and thrown it, or anything like that, they've grabbed the baby and they've run away with it and taken it off the person, the carer, get that up before the assembly, school assembly, and start to say, this has happened, this is not going to happen anymore, this is a serious piece of equipment. Also, the other thing you do is make sure that you're heralding the arrival of the babies in the school before they get there. So when you place an order with us, it's about 3 to 4 weeks before you'll get delivery of the baby. Start getting it in the newsletter, start talking about it on assembly and saying these are coming, and set the groundwork straight away that this is going to be an important piece of equipment that the school has. Also let your colleagues know that it's coming. If you've got, again, a science teacher or a maths teacher that treats it like a joke, and as I said earlier, holds it upside down and treats it like some sort of flippant, treats it flippantly, then you need to pre-warn them and let them know that it's coming so that the baby can be accepted in the school as part of the school community and be less likely to have damage caused. You'll find that the students who are doing the program with you will become they'll police the program themselves. They'll be straight up to you when they find out that somebody has mishandled the baby or somebody has taken the baby and looked after it incorrectly. Even out in the shopping centres and out in the community, they'll come back and tell you. So foster that level of importance of the baby and how it sits in the school environment. The other thing is to see if you can make it an assessment task. If you make it an assessment task, especially for the lower years in 9 and 10, if you can make it some way linked to grading, that'll give it more value in the student's eyes. The other way too is to make sure that you keep it clean. Now, if a baby is issued after 2-3 years and they've got grubby and they've got pen marks on them and they've started to get and you're basically issuing a baby with dirty clothes and nappies and so on, then that's just opening the way for the baby to be treated disrespectfully. So try and issue them with clean clothes, and the way to minimise the dirt and marks on the baby is to issue in the student's nappy bag that has the bottle and the baby's nappies and the accoutrements that come with the baby. Pop in just a little carry pack of Johnson's baby wipes or generic brand baby wipes. Get your student to wipe the baby down each night. Okay, if you wipe it down each night, it's going to really minimise the amount of grime and dirt that gets onto it, and it'll make the baby stay a lot cleaner a lot longer. If you start to get pen marks and marks on them, we do have a cleaning procedure that includes a process using, believe it or not, acne cream. and acne cream, and the combination of acne cream and extreme heat will lift the marks out of the baby. Just give us a bell on 66518138 or on our website. You can check out where the information is on those cleaning procedures. So in recapping, the greatest risk is other students who are not doing the program, particularly Year 9 and 10 boys. Make sure that you let the school community know that the baby's coming. Call it a baby at all times. Calling it a doll is just going to make people think it's cheap and it's a toy. Even keep reinforcing the fact that it's as expensive as a high-end laptop and it needs to be treated with care and respect. Generate a culture, baby culture within the school. Take abuse events seriously, so make sure that when your first event happens, get it up there in front of the assembly, get the school talking about it and saying this won't be tolerated and so on. Yeah, make it assessment task if possible, keep it clean. The last thing on there is batteries, and just this is an important feature, and I brushed over it earlier. Just make sure you're charging your batteries every 3 months or so. So if you use your baby one term and then leave it uncharged for the other 3 terms, and then come back to it again and it's been uncharged for say 30 weeks, the battery is going to start to lose its capacity. So just put in your school diary that every term, either the beginning or end of every term, just pop the baby in and charge it once, and do that when it's not being used, and you'll get the best out of your batteries over a really long period of time. There's nothing that should stop you from getting 6 to 8 years out of the batteries before you need to replace them if they are regularly charged and regularly tickled up. Okay, so the second area is how to train your students to use their babies. So we're going to look at setting up a classroom demonstration. That's on page 13 in our software help guide. So if you've got the help guide there and you've downloaded it, open up to page 13. We're going to go through that very shortly. Okay. Just a few things to know about IDs, important things we need to know about it. Head support. There's another couple of few tricks that we need to know about supporting the head. And the last thing, repeat after me. Now, repeat after me. There's 2 phrases that we'll use regularly when we're demonstrating the baby in the classroom, and we'll find out what they are in due course. Okay, so what we're going to do now is we're going to look at how to demonstrate your baby. This section is really crucial. What we want to do is we want to be able to introduce the baby to the students in a way that makes them confident on how the baby is used. If you spend little time on getting your student up to speed on how to use the baby, if they have no preparation, they take it home, it's going to cause all sorts of trouble. The student needs to know exactly how to work the baby and what their cries mean before they leave. If you neglect to do this, then you're going to have a bit of chaos happening. There also in the curriculum, there is readiness checks. So go into your curriculum and look for beginning the program, and in that section you will find a sheet that the student can tick off, and it just lets you know that they know how the baby works well. Okay, so we're going to go into our Control Center software, and we're going to go into, okay, you can see here I've got a couple of things. I've got my baby girl here, and you'll see that the battery's a bit low. I've just started charging her now. She's got one indicator full and the other one's charging. You need to have the 5 indicators full when you issue the baby. Doing a demonstration, it doesn't matter. 2 important things just to recap on our basics webinar. One is, you know that the baby is talking to your Control Center software if you've got your X stick plugged in and this green pod down the bottom is green. If it's red, then it's not plugged in or it's not communicating with it. And up here, this green tick in the COM section, that's really important as well. So if you've got the green tick, says that the baby's talking to the software, and the X and the green pod down the bottom means that the X stick is talking to the software. That means that we can start playing with our baby. Going to click on here. Okay, and just check if you've got, look in a classroom of 20 kids, if you have 5 babies and you unleash all the 5 babies at once, that could be a bit of a chaotic circumstance. So I would suggest doing 1 or 2 babies when you're bringing it to the classroom for the first time. Okay, we're just going to click on Demo, okay, And we're going to just click on this point. We're just going to click on feed. Okay, and with feed, down here I'm going to turn it on to continuous. And the event duration, so it's going to feed for 30 seconds. And here it says there's a quiet time between. So you've got 60 seconds of it feeding. And then it'll stop. It'll have a 30-second break. And then it'll start again for another 60 seconds. I'm just going to pull this down to 15 to make it a little bit more, run a bit quicker in the class. Okay, so we just want to have it feeding, and we want it to go for 60 seconds, and we want it to go for 15-second gaps in between. Now, I'm not going to start that at present. There's just one thing I want to explain to you before we move on. Okay, these are the these two things that we're going to repeat. If the baby has been asleep and quiet and it starts to grizzle, you need to identify yourself. You need to use your ID. So I'll say that again. If your baby has been quiet and it starts to grizzle, you need to use your ID and work out what the baby needs. So if the baby's grizzling, you identify yourself and then you work out whether it needs burping, rocking, feeding, or nappy changing. If the baby's screaming, you rock it. Okay? If the baby is quiet and it starts to grizzle, you identify yourself and work out what the baby needs. If the baby's screaming, you need to rock it. They're the two essential things that we're going to come back to quite regularly in this session, so the students get that cemented into their mind. So I'm just going to go here now and start the demonstration. So I'm going to start demo. The baby's going to chime. You heard that chime, and then within a short period, it's going to start to grizzle. So the baby's quiet. It's been quiet for a period of time, and now it's starting to grizzle. So it'll start off like that. You can hear it just grizzling there, grizzling away. That's not screaming, that's just a grizzly sound. And the student needs to pick the baby up. They'll have this on their wrist. Now you can hear how it ramps up, it keeps going. Now we need to identify ourselves. Just hold the ID on the bottom, it chimes. And now the chime doesn't stop it. All that does is identify you. Then you need to work out what the baby needs. Okay, so you can hear that suckling there. Okay, sucking. Now that will do that for 60 seconds because it's on a demonstration. If it's in a real simulation, it'll do it for as long as the baby fed on the day they're following. So if I pull the bottle away, the baby will stop feeding. It'll start to grizzle again. You'll hear it ramp up again. Okay, it doesn't need IDing because it's in the middle of a care session. Starting to grizzle. Right. So just put the bottle back to the mouth. You heard that just coo then, and that was the coinciding of that 60 seconds ending. So if you've looked after your baby and the baby's head hasn't dropped back and it hasn't hit one of the sensors, then, and you've looked after it well, the baby will give a coo when it's finished. Now this is on a 15-second break. It's starting to go again. Okay, so again, the baby could have been sleeping. You hear it start to grizzle. You pick it up. You identify yourself, hear the chime, and then you work out what the baby needs. Be careful to support the baby's head at all times. Now, at any time during this, if the student drops the baby or the baby gets hit or the baby's head goes backwards or forwards accidentally, the baby will scream. Now this is the screaming sound. Now that screaming sound is, when you hear that screaming sound, you need to rock the baby. So the baby needs rocking. And the way I'm doing now, this is the best way to rock it. So just hold it in your left arm and just pat it on its bottom. The baby needs to feel motion. If you just leave the baby still, the baby will continue to scream, and it'll scream for 2 hours. And then it'll stop to save the battery. You actually have to pick the baby up and physically rock it. Now you don't need to be too hard. If you hit it too hard, really whack it, the baby will go back into screaming again. This takes about between 30 to 45 seconds. It seems like a really long time when you're doing it, and it can be quite harrowing for the student. You can hear my baby settling right down there. Okay, so if the baby starts to scream, if you hear that screaming sound, you need to pick the baby up and give it and pat it and rock it. Screaming, rock your baby. Waking up with a grizzle. You can hear that starting to grizzle now. You identify your baby. Okay, now you'll hear this. I'm going to let this go now. I'm going to let this go right through to its most raucous bellow when it's in a care session. And you'll notice it's not that screaming sound that we heard. So this is starting to ramp up now. Okay, that's the sound of needing care. That's not the raucous screaming sound. Again, identify yourself. Okay, work out what the baby needs feeding. It's as simple as that. Now with the ID, you can notice that each time I'm just holding that ID still over the area of the baby's backside. That's where the antenna is. There's an antenna there, down under the bottom, and there's an antenna here up underneath the chin. But the key is to hold that, okay, 60 seconds up and the baby's given a coo sound. Again, it's only 60 seconds because that's how we programmed it. I'm going to go now into the control center software, and I'm going to just stop the demo. Okay. So these are the key things, okay? The key things are, if the baby starts to grizzle after it's been sleeping, you use the ID. Now, the key thing with the ID too is to hold it there on the antenna. Sometimes you'll get a good result if you hold it like that, if you're on your wrist. And the other area is up under here. But the real key is if you're a right-hander, you hold the baby in your left hand, you bring that underneath here, and it actually sits on the right spot, and you just hold it. If you start calling it a swiper or a scanner, and they start doing this sort of thing with the baby, they do that, that's not going to pick up. And it's not a barcode scanner at Woolworths, it's not a self-service at Woolworths. If you do that, it's not going to work. You need to hold that ID still on the bottom. Call it the student ID or the baby's ID. Don't call it a swiper or a scanner. It is the student's ID or the baby ID. And you hold it still on the antenna. We'll go back into our control center software again. Okay, I'm going to start a demo. And this time we're going to do nappy. So I'll click nappy. Again, I got continuous. And I'm going to go start demo. Okay. So I'm going to put the baby down on the table. Okay, you hear the baby starting to grizzle. Okay, the baby's grizzling. Now this time I'm just going to use my ID. If it was on my wrist, and I just hold it here. Okay, just hold it still. And we're going to change the baby's nappy. When we change the baby's nappy, the nappy needs to come right off. Now when I lift this up, you'll hear the baby coo, because it's happy to have the new nappy on. And then we close this up here. Okay, and the baby's ready to go. Okay, I'm just going to stop this and just explain a few things about this. Now, this section we're going to talk about the baby's head. So I'll just stop the control center software. So go up and stop demo, baby will chime. Okay, and the demo's stopped. I'm going to go back to screen. Okay, with the baby's head, the baby's now inactive. The baby's head needs to be supported at all times, and you can talk about the fact that the baby's head is a lot heavier, and how important that it is that the baby's neck muscles haven't formed all that, so the baby's head is totally unsupported. You can get them to hold their own head and move around and feel those muscles taking control of the head. So with their hands on the neck, they can feel those muscles working, and you can say the baby's got a large head, and the muscles aren't correctly formed in their neck. They're not strong, and so we need to be in charge of making sure the baby's head is supported. So the baby's head will register a head support when the baby's head goes right back. Now with this baby, it only travels this far. This is the full extent of the travel, there and there. So there's a sensor there there's a sensor here. If it hits any of those two sensors, the baby will scream like you heard, and it needs to be rocked. Okay, so that screaming sound is triggered by the head going back or forward all the way to the sensor. If the head goes back in quick succession like that, it's classed as a shaken baby, and we'll report that on the baby's reports. But this is really important for the students to understand. So let's say they're holding their baby like this, and they're rocking their baby like this. Okay, maybe even they're laying down a bit like this. And as they start to rock the baby slips down a bit on the chest. And as it slips down, the baby's head goes back. See that? I'll just go back up. As it slips down, that pushes the baby's head back, and that'll push it onto the sensor, and that'll make the baby scream. So if they're holding it like this and rocking it and it comes down like that, that can trigger a head support event. So if you're starting to see the babies come back with a number of head support events, that could be one of the reasons that one of the things that the student needs to look out for is they're not doing this, and it's dropping the head back. The other is when they're changing the nappy. When they're changing the baby's nappy, if they're going to take the nappy off and they lift the baby up, that can push it onto that sensor and trigger that sensor. So when they're changing the nappies, they just need to be careful not to lift the baby too high up, okay? So they're one of the key causes of numerous head supports and the baby screaming. And the student will come back and say, oh, Miss, the baby screamed a lot, and you'll get a lot of head supports. It'll be because those two things, having on the chest and pulling it down knocks the head back, and lifting the baby up to change the nappy, they're hitting that front sensor. The other thing to be aware of is that as they're passing the baby to another new person, the new person needs to understand that as you pass the baby, the head needs to be supported at all times. So get them into a mindset of making sure they're holding that head when they're picking up. You know, when they're finished changing the baby, pick it up and make sure that they're supporting that head. The other thing about the nappy too is that the nappies have a green and a yellow patch. Make sure that you are issuing a green and a yellow nappy. If the yellow nappy's on, they need to swap it out to the green one and vice versa. So the baby just needs to have those. They're different sensors in the green and the yellow, and they need to have them just circulated on a regular basis each time. Okay. So as you're going through your session with your demos in the classroom, do a call and response thing with your students and say, what do you do when the baby's screaming? Student sends it back, you rock it. What do you do when the baby's quiet and it starts to grizzle? You identify yourself and then you work out what the baby needs. Just keep that going through the course of the lesson. Screaming, rock. Grizzling and asleep and starts to grizzle, identify yourself. Okay? So if you do that in your classroom, you're going to find that you'll get a lot of students will grab that straight away and will be on board, and there'll be others that just haven't keyed in. So you need to hear from each of the students and watch them to make sure they're all answering the questions so they know. Particularly if you've got a big group, that you can allow some of them to slip by. If they know that simple lesson, screaming, rock, wakes up, starts to grizzle, use the ID. Okay. We're going to have a look at student reports, and we're going to look at how you can know what happens when simulation is finished, where to find the reports, how to view and print the reports, and how to adjust the reports. So let's go and have a look at our Control Center software. So here you are with our Control Center software. I'm going to get out of this and just explain. On the left-hand side here, you can see a number of folders, and these are folders where reports have been correlated. So here we have in the Year 11 facts, we've got these reports all sitting in here from previous demonstrations that we've done. You can see here test one for Clarice. So when you go in and program a baby, so go to available and you see you've got one baby in available. I'm going to go to program baby, and here you can see class, second home economic class. We want to file the reports into there, and you can see over here when the simulation has ended, the baby will pick it up and it'll put the reports in. Now, let's look at a student. I'm going to put in Steve, and the baby is Fred, even though it's a girl. And I'm just going to go to done, and I'm going to go to send a baby. It's going to tell me that the baby's batteries are 50% flat. I'm going to go, that's okay. And baby will chime. Okay, and you see how when you program a baby, the baby actually goes into active. See the active column here? Okay, and so the baby's inactive. And when let's roll the time forward. So it's active. You've issued the baby. It's gone home for the weekend. When the baby comes back to you, it should have finished the simulation. And when it comes back, it's already stopped. And so when the baby comes in, the first thing it does is finds the control center software if it's open, and it'll retrieve a report. So over here, you see this baby's active. I'm now going to stop it. So we go stop, and the baby's going to stop, and it says report due. It's moved out of active into report due, and the baby is retrieving the data that the baby has collected whilst doing the simulation. Once it's finished retrieving, it'll send it back up to available, and we're ready to go again. So what happens when your baby comes in after a simulation? It's already finished and completed. You open up the control center software. It finds the baby finds the software. It goes into report downloading and into report due. And then once it's finished, it files it here. And this is the one we've just had today, Steve. There's Steve. Okay, and we have filed our report in the folder that we chose, and then the baby goes back to available. To view a report, it is as simple as going up to clicking on the babies you want to look at, and you click on view, and they will display them on your screen. So this is one for Sally, and we go to the next one, and it's for Steve. You can go previous again, and this is the front page. Down here will be listed all the events that have happened, so the time that they miss feeds and burps and so on. Here's your grading area as well. Okay, so we'll just go out of that and go done. Now, if you want to print a report, you just go up to print, select the report you want, click print, and print, and it'll go to your computer's printer that is configured, the printer that's configured to your computer, and you go print. Okay, back. So if you want to edit the report and the grade that's given, go into view, and you see here just above the score box we have edit rubric. Now when I click on that, it's going to it's going to open up another window that I can't show you. If you go to page 39 of your help manual, you will see how you can click on each of those and change the grading. So this is where I sort of have to leave you to do that. So if you click on edit on yours, you'll be able to see a window pop up, and you'll be able to see how you can change the grading on what they get for a shaken baby and what they get for a head support and so on. Okay. So we're going to perform a troubleshooting test on your baby. This way you can make sure all the different modes of the baby is working correctly before you contact us and say, hey, there's a problem with the baby. So you might like to do this once a year, just to make sure that your baby is doing all the things that it needs to do to work correctly. Your babies are fairly robust, so there's not going to be a lot of problem with them. But you know, if you've got a baby that's a couple of years old, it's maybe worthwhile learning how to do a troubleshooting test. This is all on page 44 of the catalogue, and we go into the control center software. Okay, there's the control center software, and we're going to go to available babies, and we're going to go up to maintenance, and then troubleshooting. Okay, and start the test. So the first thing you'll do is hear the baby coo. That's the memory test, which comes up as CS. And you also heard it cough. That meant that there was the cough is that we've moved the baby. Okay, we're going to bring the bottle to the babies now. So if you follow these items down on the page, on the troubleshooting page of page 44, just hold the bottle to the mouth. You'll see the feeding sensor comes up into here, bottle, okay. Then we're going to go neck forward, which is the NF. Push that forward, okay. And you'll see the NF come up, neck back. Okay, you'll see the neck back come up on the arrow. So we basically go through this page and go through all the things. Movement, you turn the baby upside down, you'll hear it chime twice, then movement, okay? Rough handling, basically with rough handling, you hold the one baby's arm up in the air and just give it a good whack like that. You hear the baby gives a groaning sound, and we'll see the RH rough handling come up. Then we're going to do our yellow nappy, chimes, green nappy, chimes. We're going to get an ID, hold it to the baby's bottom. That works. Emergency stop switch, we're just going to hold in the emergency stop switch with a biro here. Just hold it in, chime it once. That's worked. Okay. Now we've got the OT, which is the outfit top. This bit. There's a sensor here. Outfit top. Outfit bottom. Okay. Then we've got the BD, which is the bodysuit. And then we've got the sleep outerwear. Where's the sensor on that? Just have to find the sensor. There it is. And then we've got the sleeper. Okay. Then we don't have the car seat safety one here. So there we go. We've got all ticks and the baby's passed. So because we don't have the car seat one, it's not going to chime. So we're going to go stop the test. You can see that each one of those things we run through. If you have a RealCare 2 plus baby, a RealCare 2 plus, it's going to stop here. You won't have the temperature sensitive or any of those outerwears. You'll just stop there. Okay. So that's the way to run a troubleshooting test on your baby. The last thing we just want to have a quick look at is our RealCare Service Centre. Our RealCare Service Centre is where you can go and find answers to many of the common questions. We get calls on a regular basis from teachers right across Australia who have regular questions about the ID, about nappies, about charging, and so on. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to virtualparenting.com.au. I'm just going to quickly jump into the website. virtualparenting.com.au. On the left-hand side, we've got online services in the middle here. And you can see here, we've got several options. The first one is for people who are looking for a demonstration on our babies prior to purchase. These are our online training options. Pretty shortly, we're going to have the webinars here in video format. And here we've got, need help with your RealCare baby, click here for the RealCare Self-Service Centre. Click into there and you can see a login page, shows you the babies which are superseded, which we don't cover in this particular service centre. If you've got any of these, give us a call and we can help you with them. Once you've worked out if you have a RealCare 2 Plus or a RealCare 3 baby, we can go into the service centre. So I'm just going to quickly log in here. Let's go. I'm just going to put my details in here, virtual parenting. And Steve, right? Email address Steve at virtualparenting.com.au and 0407410864. You can log in. Okay, so once it's loaded, you just look through each of these options. So look, let's say your student ID is not working. That's one of the things you've got a problem with. Click on it. You go, okay, the student ID is sometimes working. Click on sometimes working, and a video will come up, and this will give you an explanation of what that means when the student ID is sometimes working. Okay, not working at all is the battery charger plugged into the baby. Click on that, and that'll give you a solution there. And so basically, it'll take you through all the things you can answer yourself and get you to a point where if you can't answer it, it then will take you to say, look, okay, if you checked out that your student's ID is working correctly, the baby isn't plugged in the charger, the IDs are correctly programmed, then it's possible that it's damaged. Click here, and what you do is you can book a support call directly from here for us to give you a call at a time that suits you So you go in and go product support call, and away you go. You book your time in. So that's how we use the Service Center. That means anytime you get in front of your computer, you can answer a lot of the questions that you have already. And then if you can't answer it through that and get a resolution, then you quickly book in a time during a free period or before school or whenever suits you, and we'll call you at that time. The reason we do that is we don't have a lot of staff here, and we can, if we book the times in, we can devote our time to you when you call, and that way we're not being interrupted by other calls and so on. So now we come to the end of our advanced webinar. During that time, we hope that you've learnt all the things you need to know. You can go back and check on our website and look at the basics webinar if that's going to be helpful to you to refresh your memory. All the information you need to know are covered in both these webinars, and also when you go to the Self-Help Centre, you can answer a lot of the questions for yourself. So let's jump out of this. So there you have it. Thanks for your time, and be in contact with us if you need any further assistance. Thank you.